The opinions expressed in the following program are those of the participants and do not necessarily reflect those of Rogers nor Rogers TV.
Welcome to Indigenous. I'm your host, Monique and
And I'm Albert Dumont. All my relations know me as Oshkinodin.
Well, it's almost spring, and with the waters finally starting to flow, we thought we'd come out to Chaudière Falls and then on to Victoria Island to talk about water and talk about how important it is to our people and how important this river, this Kichizibi River, is to our people.
Yes, that's true. It's called the Ottawa River today, but in the past times, before European settlers arrived here, it was called the Kichizibi by the Algonquin Anishinaabe. And like Monique said, it's springtime now and the snows are melting. And the people long ago rejoiced at this time of the year because their traveling had to be done with snowshoes over the cold moons of winter. And there was a new energy on the land. There with the songbirds coming back and mating calls of animals and these kinds of things. Everything was coming alive, especially the waters, the rivers and the lakes were coming alive. The geese were returning. There was all kinds of activity, and to the Algonquin Anishinaabe, these were sacred occurrences, and they were very much connected to everything. The people were connected to everything that was stirring up and awakening. There was even ceremonies for people to awaken their bodies, with the use of a cedar branch, for instance, and a human being standing in ankle-deep water and waking his or her body up. Their hearts and their lungs and their entire bodies were awoken for the coming seasons and trials and tribulations that were bound to happen. But the waters, the people were very much looking forward to putting their canoes again in the waters and traveling on the Kichizibi, the Ottawa River. And what they would do is it was like a major highway for us. Water was so important. We definitely look to water as the spirit in it, the energy of it. We believe that the water could sing, the water could communicate to people. The water was something that was expected the human beings to honor it, because without water we would all perish. We wouldn't last. Nothing would live without water. So I don't know if Nick wants to add something at this point.
I think too at this time of year, is it the sugar moon yet?
It is, yes, it is the sugar moon.
We just started the sugar moon, which is when the water starts running in the trees, the sweet water. Mm-hmm. And that's when we make maple sugar, maple syrup. And this is our new year. This is when we start our new year, when the spring comes and when the animals come back. And then our people would start to travel, and we would travel down this river. For millennium, our people would come down here. We'd portage around the Akikojuan, and we would meet. We would gather here on Victoria Island, and we would gather over by the Museum of Civilization, and we would meet other Anishinaabe people, and we would hold ceremony, and we would have gatherings, and we would have feasts, and we would recognize and acknowledge the water, and acknowledge our relationship with the water and the importance, because nothing can live without water, nothing. And we've had this talk before when we were mentioning how important it is for people to protect the water. You know, clean air and clean water, it's not in our Constitution, it's not protected. And which means that industry can do whatever they want to it. I know from my own community, they wanted to put a mine, an open pit mine, up in the heartland of our traditional territory. And the tailings of that mine would come right down here and flow right past Parliament Hill and would pollute the water and contaminate the water all the way down, all the way here and beyond, right down to the St. Lawrence. And so it's not just an Indigenous issue. I think we've talked about this before. Yeah. That it's more than an Indigenous issue. It's a humanities issue. We need to protect our water.
Yeah. So just a stone's throw from here is Akikojawan, the most sacred place of the Algonquin Anishinaabe, and indeed of all the Anishinaabe. The people came from far and wide to these traditional lands of the Algonquin Anishinaabe for the purpose of ceremony at Akikojawan. Akikojawan is at the Chaudière Falls and what is called today the Chaudière and Albert Islands and Victoria Island. But these islands were sacred. You know, an island, by the way, is a place where human beings who are traveling on a waterway, they could pull their canoes up to the shore of an island. They could go onto the island and rest, you know, to sleep, to eat, and to rebuild their energy to continue their travels. And that's why we see the sea life on the Great River of Life. Because, you know, on the Great River of Life, there are many people. And the Algonquin Anishinaabe welcome all people to our traditional lands. But we expect people who come here to honor and respect water the same as we do. Water, you know, if there's people who say they or can't bring themselves to support Indigenous causes, well, let them support a cause of water then, and support us, because Indigenous spirituality was all about water and the environment and the health of all things that Creator placed here to help human beings to live well. We have to think about what's going to be going on in this country 50 years from now. You know, 50 years is not a long time. There's lots of people who are alive right now that are still going to be alive 50 years from now, we hope. But what's the state of water going to be like? Well, you know, we got to wonder if whenever they take some wind into their lungs, will they cough because there's poison in the wind? We have to think about those things. We have to think about how serious it is that places like Akikojawan be preserved for the betterment of humanity. There needs to be places, sacred places need to be kept sacred. We need to push away anyone who would harm a sacred place, whether it's a developer or industry or whatever the case. And Indigenous spirituality was outlawed until almost 1960. You know, you got to wonder how anyone could bring themselves to deny somebody their spiritual beliefs. But that's what happened. And now it's a person doesn't have to fear being arrested for singing a song that would bring health to the water or to the wind. But we need to access a sacred place, you know, a green space, parkland for all people of Ottawa, not just in Algonquin and Anishinaabe. We want to do this for all human beings, those who are alive today, those who will be alive in 50 years, those who will be alive in 500 years. We want to stand together. We want to unify in the name of spirituality, because everything has spirit. Everything has spirit, and human beings, whether they follow an organized religion or Indigenous spirituality, whatever the case, They need to understand that those ducks there and those geese and this water and the trees, these things have spirit too, and they're connected with spirituality the same as human beings are, or as at least as the same as human beings claim that they are. Because to claim that you understand something about spirituality and then deny the fact that other things have spirit, that the season has spirit, that there's spirit that comes with the falling rain and with the driving waters, that where our people would put their canoes in. We have to really, really be serious about water and keeping it healthy.
I'm just looking around and I'm seeing the geese arriving. You know, I'm feeling the wind, the cold wind.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking this is the time of the thunder beings too.
That's right.
The thunder beings are coming. Yep, the storms are starting to clean the earth, to make it ready for new things to grow. You know, they've done tests on the water already on the Ottawa River, and they find that it's full of microplastics. So even now, you can't drink the Ottawa River.
Yeah.
And this place, this whole area, because of all the rivers, the Rideau River, the Gatineau River, the Ottawa River, the Mattawa River, and people coming from the south. Here was the hub for the Anishinaabe territory. Here is where people gathered from thousands of miles. And speaking with people from the Museum of History, they were saying that not only have they found vases that come from southern states and beyond, but the seeds inside those vases come from even further away. So there were people who traveled here from all over Turtle Island, what we know as Canada and the States and Mexico and South America. They all came here to trade, to meet, and to travel. And they all traveled on the highways. Then the highways were our rivers. And they bring us life. And it's a woman's responsibility to be water carriers and to be cognizant and aware and help protect the water. Because that's part of what we do. That's our responsibility as women, as childbearers, to do the water ceremonies, to help keep and it's the men's responsibility to help the women to do these things and to help keep the water healthy for everyone.
On June 22nd, we will be gathering right here in Victoria Island, and we ask people to come and walk with us. This is a walk for water, for spirituality. We're calling on the spiritual leaders. You know, we expect that the Christians and Muslims and the Jewish people and whoever else to join us, because we all need water. And we're going to walk shoulder to shoulder in harmony. We're going to stand together for our next generations, to keep the bloodline alive, to keep the heart line healthy. People don't often think about what is the heart line. The heart line is a place like a Kikojawan. The heart line is the center of the circle. The heart line is the water that sings, where the falls are, where the rapids are, where the spirit gathers. The heart line is that passion that's in a human being, that thing that urges them to do what's right. And we need to keep the heart line healthy. We need to understand that whenever we walk in solidarity as human beings, that the politicians and whoever else, the business people, no matter how ruthless and reckless they are, will take note, and they will see that human beings just will not tolerate the poisoning of water anymore. They will not tolerate the poisoning of the wind anymore. Because we look at the eyes of our children and our grandchildren, we hear their words, we hear them at play, and we want them to have grandchildren, and we want their grandchildren to have grandchildren, and we want the land to be healthy. It makes only sense. And to connect it with spirituality, to connect it with what it is, what Creator defines as what it is to be a human being. A human being could do what's right. The things in the forest and those other things, they're communicating with spirit all their waking hours. You know, whether it's the trees or the birds or the animals, spirit is always communicating with them. Human beings, you know, we've got other things on our mind. We think about work and we think about responsibilities and paying our bills, and we don't dedicate all that much time to spirit and spirituality. But things have to change. If we really believe that there's something that continues to live after we physically die, then let us understand that we need to appreciate that and to walk together in sacredness and in health of all the things that make human beings, that will assure and confirm that human beings will still be here a millennia from now. So the river was sacred to the Algonquin and Anishinaabe, and wherever there's water flowing, wherever there's lakes and springs, the people took note of those things, and that's where they often did ceremony. You know, they believed that the water was alive, that the water could sing, the water could communicate to human beings. The spirit of the river was very much active in the lives of the Algonquin and Anishinaabe and to other First Nations people. Water is should be protected and defended with the same energy as we would defend our loved ones, our children and our grandchildren. Because without water, human beings will die. And it's something that even those people who think that they can't bring themselves to support Indigenous causes, well, Indigenous peoples need water to live, but so does every human being. So if they really need to understand, to support water, to support the health of water. That's so important for if human beings are going to endure and live into the distant future. So water is definitely, you know, everything needs water to live. The trees and the birds and
So as well as our ancestors here gathering and feasting, there's been ceremony right in contemporary times, and people coming here to fast. You've been here when they were doing that. What can you tell me about that?
Well, I remember whenever there was a ceremony going on here in Victoria Island, and there was a woman that was fasting. A lot of people were coming here to see her and to support her. And it was Chief Teresa Spence from Attawapiskat. She had a TP here, and she stayed in for several months. One day when I was here visiting, there was some people that had come here from northern Manitoba. And I got to talking to one of the men, one of their faith leaders or spiritual advisors, and he told me something very profound. He said, you know, in the past, whenever there was something of great importance that would impact the health of the community and the health of the environment and the health of the future generations, and the people noted it and wanted to change something of their actions or whatever, and they would vow, they would promise to keep that and for as long as the waters flowed. And the waters they were speaking of, he said, were not the waters of the rivers and springs. The waters that they were speaking of, whenever they said as long as the waters flowed, was those waters that flow when a human being is born. Because that's how important it was. Because whenever those waters don't flow anymore, that means human beings don't exist anymore. And that's what we need to think about human beings, and just will there come a point? Will there come a point whenever we human beings feel that we're going to become extinct? That there will be no more human beings on this planet, and we can't allow that to happen. We really need to do whatever we can to assure that the survival of human beings. I know that for me, I fully trust that the Algonquin and Anishinaabe will never disappear from this planet. We are spiritually connected. Our DNA is here, and it's always going to be here. And I'm going to do my part.
Thank you for watching today's show on water. Thank you for watching Indigenous, and please join us again next time. I'm your host, Monique Manach.
And I'm Albert Dumont, and we'll see you on June 22nd for that walk.
Kachimigwich.